Welcome into another edition this week in UNC Baseball with head coach Scott Forbes. I'm Tommy Ashley. That's Matt Clements. We are sponsored by Johnny T-Shirt and JohnnyT-Shirt.com. Coach Forbes, a trip to South Beach. I don't know if you saw the beach too much down there. Probably not at all, but want to start there. Friday and Sunday. I don't know if you could have held a mirror up to Friday, you would have had Sunday's outcome, and then you sandwich a great baseball game in between there. Just sort of your overall thoughts on the trip south against Miami.
I mean, obviously, I knew it was going to be tough. It's always hard to win at Miami, one of the best programs, top to bottom in the country over the last 50 years. And their record at home is pretty impressive. Obviously, you don't talk to your guys about that, but I've been down there. I think this is my 9th trip or 10th trip down there playing the weekend series. I knew we would have to play extremely well to win the series. And at the end of the day, I felt like we had a chance to do so, even, getting 10-run ruled on Friday. Hasn't really happened to us this year where you just get taken to the woodshed. And that's what happened to us on Friday. But this group, I knew they would bounce back. I knew they would be ready to play on Saturday. It was back and forth, very well pitched game, very good defensively played game. And we couldn't scratch a run across, and they did at the end. And then to bounce back on Sunday, when your backs are up against the wall. And in this league, if you can avoid, sweeps and win a lot of your series at home and win your midweeks, that's how you host a regional. And it's early in the season. I was really looking forward to seeing – when I woke up Sunday morning, I was looking forward to seeing how we would respond because you don't really know until you're in that situation. And it did surprise me that our guys played aggressive, played well. Sprague got us off to a great start. And I thought, all in all, you want to win a series, obviously. So you're not happy about that. But to get that win when your backs are up against the wall can really help you later.
When you look at those two games, obviously they jumped on Boaz early and often on Friday, but then you did the same on Sunday. Did you notice something different with your team in those two games, or is it just baseball?
Sometimes it is just baseball. I thought Folger was very impressive with his poise and his presence. He just did not have I always like to go back and watch after and see exactly what you see on video. And he was just right down the middle, didn't have his all speed, still competed, just got hit, and Alex White went down there in 2008, was the 14th overall pick. We lost 12-2. I've seen Matt Harvey get lit up at Miami, so sometimes it is just baseball. But from the offensive standpoint, I did feel like we have been a little more defensive in our at-bats, almost like it looked like we were hitting with 2 strikes right out the gate, really all the way back to Pitt. So we talked about that Saturday night after the game with our position players, being more aggressive, getting your A swing off, staying with your routine, reminding them, just watch major leaguers in the box. They're always relaxed, not very jumpy. And if you're going to swing, get that swing off. And they really took that to heart. And I thought they got in the box with more intent, called offense for a reason. And we were more on the offensive because, honestly, we were most concerned about their Sunday starter had been throwing really well. His numbers were really good. And we were like, man, this guy might be the toughest guy of all three. And we were able to jump on him pretty quick with some big swings at the bat.
Yeah, certainly you had to really like what Takara showed you on Saturday. I went back and watched the game a whole nother time to just kind of see how he pitched, especially with, Miami jumping on Boaz. And then Sprague struck out the first 6 guys in his game. So, I mean, they really kind of set the table after watching, Boaz, do everything he could to compete to stay in the game. Can you talk about what you saw from those 2 starters?
Yeah, it was fun in that 2008 series that I just mentioned. I brought up to our guys. We lost 12-2. We bounced back, and we win the next 2. Now, obviously, we didn't win the next 2 this time, but we had to fight. We also had Adam Warren pitching Saturday and Matt Harvey pitching on Sunday, and we gave up a good amount of runs. The wind's blowing out usually at Miami, so it's a challenge to keep the ball in the ballpark, and that tells you how well Takara threw and how well Sprague threw. Our bullpen was just so fresh on Sunday because of the 7-inning game on Friday and then the 2-1 game and DeCara throwing so well, we just wanted to go ahead and make that move early with Matthias. And you also had Houck available, and you had Pence and Poston. We never even used Poston, but I thought DeCara was outstanding. And, Spray, that was the key to yesterday. Him going out there right out of the gate, our guys, seeing, oh, wow, struck out first 3. Then all of a sudden you strike out the next 3, and then we take a lead. And, the starter set the tone, and those 2 guys definitely did that for us. So that was great to see. Sprague's really starting to settle in, understanding who he is. You can see his preparation. He's pitching in better. His changeup's better. I think he's only going to improve.
Yeah, I also didn't want to overlook in the midweeks. Certainly it was another tale of 2 cities as well. With Olin Johnson having a great performance against Rutgers, and then obviously the other performance was a little more erratic. Can you talk about the state of the midweek starters and what you expect to do moving forward? And
I think what happens is people don't know what they don't know, and Rutgers is good. They're a Power 5 team. I think they just scored like 58 runs in the weekend at Delaware. It's not like Delaware is a doormat. They're like 9-9, and I want to say 50-plus runs they scored. Their offense is legit. They've got some high draft picks on that offense. Boston Flannery obviously didn't have a great start, but our guys threw well. We found a way to beat them on Tuesday. Olin looked great. Olin had not pitched since ECU. So it was good to get him back out there. I thought he was on the attack. I thought his velocity was good. His pitchability was good. He'll start again tomorrow. And our bullpen keeps improving. And when you look at the whole week, I was obviously not winning the series at Miami. You're not happy about that. But to have 2 games against Rutgers and then go to Miami and go 3-2, that's not too bad of a week when you're looking at those offenses, because Miami and Rutgers are 2 of the better offenses you're going to face all year. The key to Miami was getting into their bullpen, but we didn't get into it until yesterday.
Coach, when you mentioned what folks don't know, and you're right, Rutgers is a good baseball team. VCU is a good baseball team. So when you're playing these teams, fans don't ultimately matter, but how do you keep your players focused on being locked in and locked in at the plate consistently? Like we talked about, Friday and Saturday weren't really there. Sunday they blow up. You've got UNC Wilmington Tuesday night, tomorrow night, and then you've got Georgia Tech coming to town that just swept NC State. I mean, those type sweeps that like Tech has against NC State, do they sort of get people's attention around the building, or is it something internal that these players have to have? It's all about process, and I got to do what I got to do.
Yeah, that comes from me reminding the players, and I just tell them, like, hey, if you don't play well in college baseball, it doesn't matter who comes down those stairs, they're not going to give you the game very often. You're going to have to earn the win. And we're a process-oriented program that protects you from getting too big-headed. If we would have went to Miami and swept and had a 5-0 week, well, okay, big deal. It's Monday. We got to get better, and we got another week coming right up. If we'd have went 1-4 or 0-5, you got to move on as well. So, for us, it's just getting better today, but also understanding what college baseball. I educate our guys and like, hey, just pay attention. There's a transfer portal. Teams are older. If a guy walks down those steps too with our tradition and our program, they're going to play at a high level because it's the University of North Carolina, and that's why you came here, and you got to match that every single day. So our guys know. They know, and I can use examples of the years we've had great years and we're hosting regionals. We find a way to win these big games, and they may be close, but we find a way to win them compared to maybe losing too many of those midweek games, and then all of a sudden you're on the road for a regional.
I think the basketball team may have learned that lesson. If you don't show up on Saturday night, I know you didn't watch it, but I know you were paying attention.
Man, let me tell you something. I get on the bus, you get walked off, and I check my phone, and we're down, and I'm like, dadgummit. But I me, Tommy. Matt, I'm a positive guy. I know what people think of the ACC tournament. You're trying like heck to win it. But again, we won the ACC tournament in 2022 and beat NC State. But I give you that back right now. If we go to Omaha and have a chance to win the national championship and beat Arkansas. And that's the way I looked at it with our basketball team. I was like, you know what? They're going to move on, and it's going to make them even better for the ACC tournament. And I went back and watched, and because I'm such a big UNC sports fan, a basketball fan, and those guys play hard every single time, and sometimes you just don't come out on top. It'll make us better. I'm excited about March Madness, that's for sure.
It all kicks off there. If you're watching this and you don't know, Thursday at 2:45, Carolina against Wagner or Howard. Coach, let me ask you about. We mentioned Folger Boaz a little bit earlier. He's played so well and pitched so good, and then he has that outing. Talk to me about the process of dealing with a young pitcher facing, for lack of a better way to put it, failure, really for the first time in his college career, after 2 or 3 quality performances, to go down there and do that. As a coach, how do you talk him up or talk him out of that?
I tell our guys all the time, you find way more adversity introduces a man to himself, as we know. It's one of our sayings, one of our quotes. And every team has it. Every player has it. You prefer to have it early. I'm not glad that we got run ruled by Miami, but when I was working on some stuff in the hotel room, I'm like, okay, we're going to find out a little bit about this team. We played Campbell on the road. We've played ECU on the road, but we haven't been on the road in the ACC. We haven't had to hop on a plane. We haven't had to pack. We haven't had to travel. Other things added into it. And then Boaz hasn't pitched on the road. You got to learn how to do that. And that's all I told him is like, hey, man, what we talk about every day. I told him the same thing I told DeCaro, basically. DeCaro, congratulations. You pitched great. It's over. Boaz, it's over. Like, your confidence is on you. If you work hard, you'll be confident. You'll be ready. But sometimes, when you get smoked in the teeth, it helps you. It helps you. Hey, I got to work a little bit harder. I got to do this. I got to do that. And that's what I told Folger. I said, the thing I was most proud of you about is how you just kept competing and you just didn't have your best stuff. And that's baseball.
When you talk about baseball, looking at what Gavin Gallagher did last week, especially Sunday, this week, I think he had 9 hits, 5 runs scored, 7 runs batted in, and 2 base on balls. Has he basically forced you to put his name in the lineup somewhere at this point?
Sure has. Yeah. Gavin too, talking about a refreshing kid and family. There's a kid that's in the lineup some, out of lineup some, unbelievable attitude. Throw him in left. Yes, sir. Throw him at third. Yes, sir. Second, first. He doesn't care. He's a team-oriented guy, been raised the right way, and he works his tail off, and he's talented. And he was a big part of our success at Miami, hitting that grand slam, let a lot of the air out. He has a lot of respect from his teammates. So, we're gonna play Gavin and keep him in the lineup, and he's such a great utility guy. There's not much he can't do. So you'll be seeing him in a lot of different positions.
What do you expect to do for the rotation this weekend? Are you going to keep it the same?
Absolutely. Yep. We'll throw Olin Johnson tomorrow. Feel great about our bullpen. We didn't have to tax it as much as we have with these 5 games. And, we're starting to get in that. We pretty much know who's going to be in what roles, and we'll have to play well against a good UNCW team tomorrow. So we'll focus on them first and get Folger's bullpen to Caro and Spray and get them ready for Georgia Tech.
Obviously, when you score 18 runs, you have a lot of guys that perform well at the plate. But Alberto Asuna, we've talked about him a lot, and I know he was injured last year, but I wanted to ask you what's different about him aside from that injury, because there were times last year that if he got 2 strikes on him, he might as well have headed on back to the dugout then. Mm-hmm. This year's not the case, and he's not only hitting the ball with power, but he's putting the ball in the gap, he's running the bases. Just how much has he grown, and what's different from him, from last year that you've seen growth-wise?
Yeah, I think if you asked Alberto, I think his mind is much clearer from the standpoint of you would have to ask him. He could explain it better. But, sometimes you get focused on the wrong things. but he's focused on the right things. And the only thing that kid cares about is helping our team win and, doing his job to do so. If he's DHing, if he's playing first, whatever. And he works, he's just a winner. And that's the thing about Alberto. When you have a guy like that works so hard and his attitude's so good, you can't help but think like, hey, he's going to be rewarded for it. But he's really worked on saying, okay, I can become more of a complete hitter. I can shorten up a little bit with 2 strikes, and I can still hit doubles and home runs with 2 strikes. But like you said, I don't want to be a quick out when things aren't going well. So if I'm not feeling great, how do I make that adjustment and still have quality at bats? And he's really learned to do that with Coach Weirs.
One of the things that I've really been impressed with Asuna, obviously he, did a lot of work on his body and his fitness, but also it looks like his foot speed, his ability to bust it out of the box and get a double. I mean, that really just benefits his slugging in percentage. Like if you turn, all of your doubles into singles,
You're trying to say that Alberto's fast?
I'm saying that he could smoke me in a
He thinks he's fast. He's always on base, like trying to give me the green, like, hey, you want to give me the green light? I'm like, no, Alberto, probably not. But he works hard at it. He really does. He's worked on his foot speed with Coach Gatz, worked on his stretching because he's so muscular, try not to pull any muscles. But, man, he's a good base runner, and that goes back to his days at Walter State. Dave Shelton working hard. They do a good job there. Really good at reading dirt balls, really good at getting jumps. And you're right, Matt, that's helped us because I have to really think about the only reason I'm going to pitch run now for Alberto Asuna is just straight speed. If you got a guy like Caleb Cost, probably going to use him in a big situation. But other than that, there's no reason to because Alberto's a really good base runner.
I want to see running the bases with Asuna, Coach Forbes, Coach Weirs, Howe, and Coach Riley, and see who wins those battles.
I won't win the battle. I'll pull my hamstring in a second. No sprints for this guy anymore.
Let me ask you a couple more questions, but one about we've talked about the errors. You told me and Matt after Rutgers that you had to clean up the errors, and you had 2 clean games in Miami, and then you had some even in the blowout win on Sunday. At what point, and I don't know a nice way to ask this, but at what point do you start moving guys around or maybe sitting guys if they're making plays that aren't acceptable? Is that a fair way to put it?
Yeah, you're dead on. I mean, that's just what you do. You have early work. You say, okay, and, that's our job as coaches. You got to be more consistent. Vandenbrecht's a great example. He's back at third base and he's really done. His range is really good. So he's got to get where, okay, you get to that ball, then you still have to make that good throw. Do you play the range, knowing that, okay, might be a little more risky at times with the errors, but you want to get more balls, or you play a little more sound guy? So those are the things that you got to keep working on. But you also know who can really defend. And sometimes those errors can come early and they can be a little bit misleading depending on what they are. For me, the errors that can't happen are just the routine balls. You got to make the routine plays. If you dive for a ball backhanded and you get up and you throw it and they decide to give you because the ball's hit 108 and the first baseman doesn't dig it, that's not really an error in my book. Obviously, you got to make plays to win championships, but if you don't have range, you're not making that play anyway. But yeah, we've made changes here before in the middle of the season. Move guys here, move guys there, and that's what we have to do. We will do, but I still believe in our defense. Madera had a great week defensively. Honeycutt had a great week. Parks, we really worked on Parks, made a couple moving to his right with the throws to the pitcher. We worked hard on that in pregame at Miami, and sure enough, he started getting more of those balls, and he made them. So sometimes those errors early in the season look really bad, but if they're a certain type of error and you feel like if you work on something, you can improve on it, maybe you won't make as many. So that's kind of where we're at as far as that goes, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point. If somebody makes a diving stab in the hole and then makes a bad throw, it's kind of a wash, really, there. So
yeah.
Let me ask you about the last question for me. Injuries, lineup changes. D'Onofrio was out this weekend. What's his status? And then also, How do you approach injuries? A lot of coaches will say you can't lose your starting position because you got injured, but when you have a guy like Gavin Gallagher that's playing his butt off, how does that shape your approach going down the
that's
road?
that's the nature of the beast. I wouldn't say I'm the type of coach that says you can't lose injuries suck. I've had them when I played. There's no way around it. But, if a guy gets put in the game and he's playing really well, it is what it is, right? But our approach to injuries is we trust our medical folks. The player, I trust that the player's going to tell me when they feel good. The medical folks will tell me. It's not my job to continue to ask them, can you go, can you go, can you go? That's where you have great support here at the University of North Carolina. And it depends on different guys have different types of injuries, right? You got a guy like D'Onofrio that's a speed guy. You got to be pretty smart if it's a quad or it's a hammy. Hey, let's make sure that thing's healed instead of keep trying to go and it gets a little bit worse and gets better, a little bit worse, a little bit better, trying to get it to heal altogether. And, he's right field. He just had a little bit of a slight hammy pull on him. And I'm like, well, we can use him as a pitch hitter. We can use the Kirk Gibson approach if we have to. But I just want to get him healthy because a part of his game is speed. You look at, we held out Vance on Wednesday and he moved to center field and made some great plays against Rutgers. So I look more long-term for the season when these injuries and say, okay, if we give a guy a day or two, yeah, it'll change the lineup. It might be a little bit harder to win this game today, but it helps that young man get healthy. And at the end of the day, these guys have a chance to play the game a long time, and you have to look at them first and make sure that they're healthy.
That is head coach Scott Forbes. I don't really have a fun question today. I always come up with a fun one. It's been a little bit hectic. Maybe I'll have some for you next time.
Well, it's been hectic. Well, we got basketball going on or something?
Well, they play that round ball, and then in Chapel Hill today, I should have just come by your office and done this in person because Mac Brown, spring practice, he talked about your guy, Caleb Cost, a little bit. So, it is crossover season, and at Inside Carolina, there's never any off season. I could ask Adam Smith over here, our beat writer.
I didn't realize I hadn't looked at the schedules. So 2:45 Thursday, 2:45 on Thursday, right?
2:45 Thursday against the winner of Howard.
I might have to call Georgia Tech and give them the first practice instead of we usually are done by 5, let them practice at 5:30. But maybe we'll watch the game. I don't know. We got to figure that out. Maybe we'll have it on the flat screen out here in practice.
They put it on the big board.
That's a great idea. I just don't want somebody to be looking at the big board and Alberto Asuna hit a line drive and we'll have another injury.
You can only look at the board behind the screens. But it's a hectic time. I know you're busy. I appreciate you making time for us today. And as always, I appreciate Matt joining me for these, and Johnny T-shirt and Congruity. And Scott, good luck this week.
Thank you guys. Have a great week.